When Jackal told his father Gael wouldn't buy, his brow furrowed in the way one would with worry. Jackal didn't ask. He thought he had a good idea why. The merchant, as he called himself, that they usually did business with had high prices for his merchandise, as they were rare and often stolen items. But their father always paid the asking price, and if he didn't, he always made sure to pay back what he owed. Or at least, Jackal thought he did. The rest of the day went by without much excitement, which relieved Jackal. Kiara was begrudgingly helping the customers while their father was in the back room, organizing and bringing supplies out to Jackal, who would cart them out to customers who had placed larger orders. When the sun had set and the moon had risen, their father sent them up to the house to wait for him. Jackal leaned near the window, facing out to the cool night air, while Kiara continuously threw a knife into the wall. She always did this when she was in a foul mood, so much so that their father just gave up trying to replaster the particular section she always used. She would throw it while pacing back and forth in the dining room, which was also the main room of the house, the place they cooked and ate food or entertained guests when they had them over. The dining table was in the center with the cooking area off to one side. The room had only 3 walls, as the 4th was replaced by wooden pillars, which led to their rooms. On one end was Jackal's, on the other was Kiara's. In the middle of the hall was the door to their father's room. The sound of the front door being open was hidden from being in sync with the thud from Kiara's knife throwing. So when their father closed the door behind him a split second after, he jumped a little. Their father came in and sat down. He crossed his arms across his chest again and his legs under the table, leaning back into the chair and looking down with a forlorn expression on his face. He looked like any worried father would, but his showing age made the position look even more sorrowful. He sat like this for several minutes, Kiara's knife throwing the only sound in the house. His sudden beckon for them to sit down startled Jackal. A dog barked somewhere in the town. It rang in Jackal's ears like a bell. Jackal sat in a chair next to his father. Kiara glanced over at them for a few seconds before rolling her eyes and returning to her knife throwing. The silence was broken when their father sighed and began to speak.
Not sure how to explain this.
His words seemed to be caught in his throat, and it was straining him to say them.
The thing is that there are things that... How can I say this? You see...
He was interrupted by the dog in the distance barking again. He motioned for Jackal to go close the window, which he got up to do without question, the scraping of his chair against the floor ringing in his ears the whole way to the window. The hinges creaked as he swung the first pane closed, restarting a ringing through the silent, still air. He was about to swing the second pane closed, but he couldn't. It was stuck. He tried again, but to no avail. Upon further inspection, Jackal saw that the hinges had been iced over. How? It was almost the middle of spring, yet the air was cold. Freezing, even. He could see his breath forming temporary stains on the window, building up to an icy frost around the edges of each sheet of glass. It was quiet. Like a blanket had fallen on the whole town, muffling every noise. And there was a smell of death, like 1,000 corpses were just lying in the street rotting. He had a minor heart attack when his father laid a hand on his shoulder. His father went to close it himself, but when he touched the handle, he recoiled. The handle was so cold, Jackal could see the marks on his father's skin where it had burned him. That was when Jackal thought his father saw what was going on, because he looked at the windows, saw the ice, the steam of his breath, and probably smelled the putrid stench of rotting corpses. His face changed from confusion to fear, and then to a saddened look of dismay. The kind someone gives when they wished for more time. He pulled his sleeve over his hand before he grabbed the handle and slammed the window shut. He locked it with a click, then proceeded through the house to lock all the windows and front door. He took Jacko by the front of his shirt and Kiara by the back of hers and threw them into a closet.
Stay here, stay silent, and don't leave whatsoever.
Wait,
Kiara yelled.
what are you doing?
Jacko followed up her question with,
What's going on?
but their father didn't listen. Through their yelling and protesting, he closed the door and locked it, plunging them into a cold, dark, claustrophobic room. A makeshift coffin for two. Jacko was confused and terrified, which didn't make a good combination. Kiara was too, with a hint of anger. This only heightened Jackal's fear. Through the door, Jacko heard their father's muffled voice.
Listen, I know you're scared, confused, and have many questions to ask. They will be answered.
He said, starting to nail something across the door.
But not right now. Just trust me, stay in there.
He finished nailing what Jacko could only assume were boards across the door.
If only you knew.
Was the last thing he heard his father say before hearing footsteps go across the main room and out to the front door.